This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. It is something that we all deal with on a regular basis, pretty much every day. The question is, how are we dealing with this thing known as stress? We're going to dig into that today and what we can do maybe to minimize stress, maybe handle it a little bit better. It's always going to be there. It's always going to present. And if you let it get the best of you, it can cause some major health issues as well. That's one of the major reasons why we're digging into it today. He helps people with this all the time. An amazing psychologist, offers counseling and also energy psychology and so much more. And it's great to have Dr. Will Newman back on the program with us. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Wonderful to have you back. You provide such insight, but you do it in such a way, in my opinion, where we can understand it, and you do it with compassion. Got to be honest with you, and that makes a big difference. And if anybody wants to reach out today, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com is one way to do that. You can also call us at 631-319-6275. So when we say stress, Dr. Will, how do you define that? How do we even know what stress is?
Simply put, stress is a pressure, a worry, a demand, a fear in the day-to-day living that leads to a response that begins from our perception. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, we taste, what we feel. That perception is recorded in what is called the autonomic nervous system, which means the automatic nervous system. And if we perceive the stress is more harmful, more dangerous, then the autonomic nervous system will lead to reactions in the body that are more severe. It may be in the same way, it may be when it's acute, something that's intense, and then it reduces over time, or something that's chronic, intense and long-term. And there's different consequences to one's health, especially if it's chronic. Acute stress is encountered by all of us in the day-to-day living experiences, such as being at a traffic light and somebody runs through the red light and almost hits you. We can't avoid that except to be vigilant, and by being aware, we can respond more quickly. Whenever there's a perception of stress, scientifically, it goes through a process in the body from perception, from the senses. It then registers in the hypothalamus, which activates a message to the pituitary, which activates a message to the adrenal medulla on the kidneys, which releases adrenaline. And that adrenaline can be so high it releases cortisol, and that's what creates wear and tear on the body. If it's chronic, if it's long-term, it can cause diseases. It can cause digestive diseases. It can cause heart diseases. It can cause diseases such as irritable bowel syndrome.
Well,
chronic fatigue.
We're going to go to a call in just a moment, but I want to share with you, to even back up what you're saying. It was, let's see, 2016, 17 for me, where I was feeling, I didn't know what it was, something in my stomach. I had no idea, but I know that I was stressed out in terms of working 3 jobs at that time, taking on additional responsibility, had moved, renovating a house, small children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was an ulcer to the point where I drove myself to the hospital because my blood pressure went so high, which is normally perfect, because of the stress. I didn't know what it was. That even made it worse. And it turned out to be an ulcer diagnosed. And I've had, flare ups along the way. But, to your point, why we're even talking about it today, getting a handle on stress.
Yes.
It manifests in so many different ways. I do believe we have a call. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Hi, who's this?
Hi, this is Rob.
Rob checking in from Ocala, Florida. You had a question for Dr. Will?
Yes, just curious to know. And lately, I've been, dealing with a lot of stress at work. My job is stressful. Because I have, to meet quotas. And I do like my job, but I don't know, how to handle my stress load.
So you're looking for suggestions on how to deal with that.
Right.
Gotcha.
And please repeat your job description, Rob, so I can understand what you do.
Well, it's sales, and sales and contacting, phone marketing,
Gotcha.
and contacting, cold calling, prospects.
Yep.
On selling them,
So I would imagine also you have quotas to meet and expectations from your employer and all of that, which even
online, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's very, very stressful.
What you just described, Rob, is one of the most common stressors for most people, and that is worry about the outcome of something that you want to be fruitful or beneficial versus unsuccessful.
Correct.
And the best way to adjust and reduce that stress is to understand that what's most important is what you can control. And what you can control is performing your job to the very best of your ability, and that you are capable and confident and calm to do that in the present, one call at a time.
Mm.
You cannot control the outcome because you can't control what the receiver of your call is thinking or wanting or feeling. Therefore, don't expect that it always must be successfully giving you the outcome. Stay in the present.
That's a good one. Okay.
What did you?
Very good.
Got it? Okay. Stay in the
thank you.
present, one call at a time, in the present, and eventually you'll get the call where the receiver wants what you want, but it doesn't have to be this call this time. You don't know.
To your point, and I just saw this yesterday, as a matter of fact, and this comes up every year or every year and a half. They do research, studies, reports on the things that we worry about never materialize. And it was 85% in the study that I saw yesterday. And I see it over years. It's usually between 85 and like 92% of the things that we worry about never happen. We're wasting our time. We're wasting our energy. It's easier to say that, when tough to realize it when you're in the moment, but we live in a what if what if that caller hangs up on me? What if, my boss isn't happy and I get fired? Why we waste a lot of time and then stress worrying about things, right?
Yeah, worrying. That's going to the future. I'll give you a saying that helps to orient you. Be here now. Now is the only time. The past is gone. It is dead. The future's not here. It's illusionary. My happiness can only be found now. Be here now.
I always said thank you for that. And by the way, I don't know if I ever shared this with you. in my journey, I was going through some rough stuff about 5 years ago, and I met somebody that just I dropped out of the sky, and yeah, we had a nice friendship. But here's the message that came from this person. They said to me, "Why don't you ever live in the moment?" And I said, "I don't know what you mean.
Yes.
You're always living in the past. You're living in the future. You're never living in the moment." I had no idea what they were talking about. It took months, year to really, really figure it out. And once I did, it was like, oh, like if you take this second right now, Dr. Will, right here, slice that second. And now this one right there. What's wrong? Nothing. Nothing in the second, the moment, being in the moment.
In the moment. And you can add to that when you're in the moment to focus on gratitude. The more you
mm,
focus on what you're grateful for, the more it orients you to the present and the more it gives you joy, which gives you stress inoculation because
mm,
you're focused in the present with joy and the stress bounces off like rubber tipped arrows.
wow. It's almost as if the gratitude is like the fuel for living in the moment.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of this easier said than done when you're going through a lot of things. And then others, can say, well, wait a minute, Dr. Will, Steve, you don't realize, I've got this going on. I've got to make these payments. I got to pay the rent, the mortgage. Look at this. Look at this. Look, we're nothing minimized here. We all got stuff going on, but it's how you deal with it, right?
It's how you deal with it. It's the
Mm.
response to the stressor that makes all the difference.
I want to go to an email we got, and this is from Kelly, who is in Searsport, Maine, who checks in and says, "Thank you for your talk today. What is the difference between stress and anxiety?"
There isn't a difference because
Mm.
stress is a general term meaning pressure. The pressure could be worrying about something, which is anxiety. Or we may say imagined fear. You're going into the future away from the present. Another pressure or stressor may be anger with such intensity that your autonomic nervous system contracts. It may cause explosive language. It may cause a reaction to want to fight or flight. So, so therefore, you may simplify your answer by understanding that anxiety is worry, imagined fear in the future. And that's a pressure
Mm.
just like anger is, or guilt, or shame, or confusion. They're all stressors, they're all pressures. They all affect the autonomic nervous system, which then affects us physically, which then blocks the functioning of our body for ultimate healthy functioning.
Dr. Will, what do we do when we're faced with what feels like a stressful situation? Let's say, um, we're worrying about how am I going to make the bills or whatever. Let's say you have a bill hanging out there you got to pay by the end of the month. Here it is, halfway through the month. You're like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to, find the funds? It's a challenging situation. How do we look at that in a different way so that we're not stressed out about it and maybe can be a little more proactive in terms of figuring it out, whatever it is?
I suggest that you pick a time in the day where you have a flexible amount of time and it's not a narrow window of time
Mm.
with a pad of paper and a pen and write down what resources or ways do I have to get the money that I need to pay this bill, to meet this obligation, and write them down. That's what you can control. Then write down, what are ways for me to develop resources to get the money that I don't have now, but it's possible to develop? And that may be looking, for example, looking at possibilities for getting a short-term or long-term loan with a bank or with
Sure.
friends or family, whomever you may, or increasing the number of hours that you're going to work, or taking on a second job because it's short term, and even though it's going to be more stressful to work more, it's a means to an end to make the money to reduce the stress of not paying the bill and experiencing the consequences that you may be worrying about in a higher, increased way.
I see it in looking at the big picture, if you will, and depending on the bill that you need to pay. Let's say it's a medical bill. Many medical institutions, they just send them something. you know, they're
Yes,
okay
yes,
with that. As long as they know that you're addressing it, you're attempting to make payments. They'll tap the brakes on any repercussions that could come. That's just one example. But what I'm getting from you is when we're in the throe of stress, it's like a tornado. You're in the middle of it. You're spinning around. You can't focus. Now all these
yes.
challenging chemical situations take place that could compromise your health and more. Writing it down kind of gives you clarity and just it's almost like a bird's eye view flying over the bleachers in a stadium. Now I can see where all the players are, everything that's going on, every situation, as opposed to being on the field and getting stressed out.
That's exactly it. And by getting the clarity with yourself, it then gives you clarity about whom to reach out to, who to communicate with about making payments, or getting longer terms with the person that you're obligated to pay the bill to. Communication with clarity is often the solution. It begins with you being aware that you may be able to communicate with someone about getting longer term payments.
I'm surprised what you said. Now, we know that stress affects our health, but the kidney aspect, I didn't ever think about that, where that could compromise your kidneys just from stress alone.
Well, I'm saying that the adrenal medulla is a gland on the kidneys, and it's secreted from that location on the kidneys. And that secretion is called cortisol. That increases stress, and it can affect the heart, it can affect the immune system, it can affect the digestive system, it can cause muscle contraction, headaches, chronic fatigue. So it's not exactly on the kidneys. The kidney stress is most often happening whenever one is consuming toxins in a quantity that can't be processed effectively by the kidney. That's what causes kidney illness. It's an override. It's a toxicity overflow. What I'm saying is it's the adrenal medulla secretion of the signal to the body and all the organs. The adrenal medulla secretes it on the kidneys,
Wow.
from the kidneys.
What's your suggestion when a stressful situation presents? You're in the throe of it. Maybe you're angry. Something triggered you. Like, what are you? And now the stress is building. Do you feel that instead of reacting to it, take a step back, take a deep intentional breath or four, and kind of tap the brakes on the situation?
Yes, if you're alone, it's most easy to do that. If you're with somebody, it's effective to say, I need to take a moment alone, or I need to take a time out if you're with a loved one or a friend or a relative or a spouse. And then regulate the mind and body with the vagus nerves. And when you said take a breath, that's literally it. By taking a slow, deep breath in and a more slow, deep breath out, that puts the brakes on the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is connected to the brain, through the brain stem, down the spine, connecting to all the organs. And by the slow breath in and slower breath out, it most rapidly puts the brakes on the stress causing fear or anger or any type of reactivity. And then when you feel your body calm down, then reapproach the situation that you're angry about. What am I truly angry about? What am I really angry about? What is there to be angry about? Clarify it, and then ask yourself, what's another way to communicate my distress about my anger that can be received by the person that I'm angry at in a reasonable, safe way?
Many times, would you say that when these situations present, we're amping them up in our heads for many different reasons? Maybe you feel you're not being heard. Maybe you feel you're not being respected. Where we just fly off the handle, if you will, which adds to the stress in our body. But when you process all of that, it's not as bad as it usually it presents in your mind, usually.
Usually, and when that happens, after you adjust to it in the way that you suggested, you understand that sometimes when you react with anger that's more intense than the situation at hand, it's stemming from the anger that you've experienced in the past that's unconscious, and it's being transferred to this experience. One of the most common traumas that I work with children and adolescents is being bullied. And bullying can be so severe that it traumatizes children, because some children can be so cruel. Hurt children. And that's an example of the reactivity of fear or anger, and the necessity to regulate that so that you're calm enough in the present to then reach out, if you're a child or adolescent, to adults for assistance.
I experienced bullying when I was a child. And I can say, first off, it challenged me later as an adult until I started working on it. It's
Yes. Yes.
it makes
It's
it work.
long term. It takes work. It takes healing work, because it imprints the body. That fear is imprinted because it's so overwhelming, because the child's defenseless. If the bully is larger and stronger and meaner and crueler, and often the child is without support. Parents aren't present, teachers aren't present, and they're defenseless.
Could it also, let's go hypothetical, almost out of time here, but this is so important, talking about stress, everyday stress. Let's say that you had challenges in your past, maybe bullying, maybe you weren't seen, not heard from your parents. And we've talked about that before in terms
Yes.
of, our childhoods and how we pilot as adults based on a lot of the things in our childhood and our subconscious. But let's say that was the situation back in your childhood. situation presents in adult life, let's say you have an issue with a company. You're right. They're not taking care of what they should be taking care of. I'm being hypothetical here. And what happens? You get stressed out because you're angry that they're not realizing what needs to take place or remedy a situation that should be done. Their stress presents, and you're not even thinking clearly in terms of how to attack it. Is that even possible? Would that even, based on childhood and then adult life?
Most certainly. So let's say a child is bullied, and the child feels the fear, and then there's no solution. Day after day, week after week, year after year, the fear continues because the bully's there. The child feels helpless. That's called learned helplessness. Then, as an adult, whenever there's a work stressor or conflict, and there's a reaction of fear, that may then connect with the helplessness in childhood, and the adult may be frozen in fear, not able to talk about it, not able to address it, because the fear is so intense, because it's connecting to the fear that's imprinted in the body from the past, whether it be bullying or some other trauma.
Wow. So is it safe to say that if you were bullied as a child, and most kids were in some shape and form, the bully's always there. The bully's always with you, even as an adult.
Yes. Yes. Until that trauma is cleared from the body, that imprint, that biochemical, electrical imprint, connecting the brain and the body from that experience, that severely stressful experience that's traumatic.
And many ways to deal with that through counseling, certainly psychologically working with somebody like yourself, also energy psychology, which we've touched upon.
Yes.
We say the imprint, the electrical imprint, if you will, is within the body. Dr. Will, how do we find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
3 ways. Phone number 978-388-0022. Email Dr. Bill, instead of Will, Dr. Bill Newman, Newman, @gmail.com, or on my website, Energy Psychologist Amesbury MA for Massachusetts.com.
Gotcha. I call you Dr. Will. Is that okay?
Yeah, Dr. Will is what I go by. The email Dr. Bill Newman is an old one from long ago, because I couldn't find Dr. Will Newman.
Gotcha. I look at the time that we spent today, and I have to tell you, Dr. Will, went by in a flash. And
it did for me too.
Like, we're overtime. But I feel that because this is so important and challenges all of us on a daily basis, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to stress. So I'm grateful that we got a chance to do that today. Thank you for being here.
I'm very glad to have been here. See you next time.
Looking forward. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.